Dynasty trade targets by position. We're going through everything under the sun: wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks. Of course, when we do this video, you guys know that we have a brand new Dynasty trade value chart update over on the site, flockfantasy.com, promo code FSC to get started. We are going to break down the hard buys, the soft buys, the hard sells, and the soft sells at all of the fantasy relevant positions. And of course, we're going to tell you what these guys are actually worth. Ideally, what you should pay for them if you're buying, what you should sell them for if you're selling. It's not just buy this player or sell this player. If they are worth it on the open market to buy or sell, that's what we want to be giving you guys real actionable advice. So let's get it kicked off with the wide receiver position. The buying strategy for me this offseason, especially in January, February, when we are pre-free agency, pre-draft right now. My buying strategy at wide receiver is understanding that this draft class is pretty strong at wide receiver. We have, I would say, 10, 12 contributing wide receivers that are going to be added in the first two rounds, maybe the first 75, 100 picks of the NFL draft. And that's going to shake up some wide receiver cores. Plus, we also have a couple free agents like Alec Pierce types. We also have a couple of trade candidates. Maybe A.J. Brown is available. Maybe DJ Moore is available. Maybe Brandon Ayuk is available. We'll talk about all of those types of players, but just understand at the wide receiver position that this year, there's a good amount of supply of new talent as opposed to the running back position, which I'll touch on in a few minutes here. Wide receivers and running backs going to be a big part of this video. Let's get into the hard buys at the wide receiver position, guys that I am buying in most league formats, most league situations. Okay, so the first guy that I am hard buying right now is Chris Godwin, who is going to be 30 years old next year, who was wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game when healthy in 2024. Of course, we know with Liam Cohen there, they used him in the slot. Injury wipes away his 2025. He suffered that gruesome ankle injury in the middle of 2024. We still do not know at this point in time who the Buccaneers will hire yet, but rumblings are that it could be Mike McDaniel. It could be one of these offensive-minded OCs that could eventually take over the head coaching job for Todd Bowles at some point in time. He is a great 1 to 2 year rental flex piece for contenders, in my opinion. He still could have 3-4 years left in the tank because Godwin's a very hard worker. He's a very good teammate. He's very, talented player still at this point in time. Even this season, you could see flashes of the old Chris Godwin. We just need to see him get back on the field healthy and ready to go. And I do think that this Buccaneers offense will bounce back. I know I'm biased. I'm a Buccaneers fan, but Chris Godwin, to me, of all the pieces in this offense, is the one that I would be buying, especially for those of you guys that are contenders. Now, again, the next player that I'm going to talk about is another player that I've been very adamantly buying for a long time. Brandon Ayuk, who is 28 years old, obviously did not play a single game this season. A combination of the ACL tear in the middle of last year, and it sounds like a very fractured relationship with the San Francisco 49ers front office. This season going forward, he's going to be 28 years old. He's 2 years post-ACL. He's clearly a knucklehead. I'm not going to say that Brandon Ayuk is going to get back to top 12 production or top 15 type of production. The last time we saw him fully healthy was 2023. He was the wide receiver 14 that year. In 2022, the wide receiver 15 that year. Maybe that's not within the range of outcomes for Brandon Ayuk anymore, but price. This guy on the open market, which what I'm using is Keep Trade Cut as a gauge because it's very reactive. I think it behaves a lot like a lot of people's league mates. They are suggesting that he is available for late seconds and early thirds. We are talking about a player who is still very talented, who last time he was fully healthy was one of the more talented second-team all-pro wide receiver in 2023. I would be willing to pay upwards of like the 202, 203, 204, because again, keep in mind this year, in this draft class, we're not talking about an exceptional haul of young rookie players. We're talking about guys that are not necessarily the greatest prospects. So I would be willing to pay an early second for him, but Keep Trade Cut, like I said, lists that you could maybe get him for a late second, early third round pick. Most logical destination is that he reunites with Jaden Daniels in Washington. Maybe he goes to the Bills. Maybe he goes to the Patriots. There's nutted range of outcome spots that even if you bought Brandon Ayuk right now and you don't believe in him, he might just gain value to the point that you could cash out before the season even begins. But I actually do believe in the talent. I do think that for whatever reason, he's disgruntled when he's in a better place and when he wants to actually play. He's still a very good wide receiver. So again, Brandon Ayuk, a little bit of a riskier buy, but again, the price tag makes him not that risky. Late second, early third round is the price tag. I would be very comfortable playing an early to mid second for him, no problem. Deebo Samuel was also pretty solid this year, a former 49er as well. Early in the season, he was producing like a madman, like a difference maker. He is a unrestricted free agent in a few months. I expect Washington not to bring him back, but he can contribute, and there's tons of 49ers coaching tree wide receiver destination positions all over the league. You think of the Houston Texans maybe using a wide receiver. Tennessee, according to reports, they're going to hire Robert Saleh. Maybe they bring Deebo Samuel back in Tennessee. They could use some weapons wherever Clint Kubiak goes. Maybe Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta. There's tons of landing spots where Deebo Samuel could go and be used the way that he's traditionally being used. So those are my hard buys at the wide receiver position. Again, nobody really expensive, but guys that if you're a contending team and you want to get ahead of things, you want to go out and add some flex production, I think all three of these guys are very good options. Now let's move into the soft buys at wide receiver. Now, it's important to understand that a soft buy means that they're a buy in league-dependent formats. Where they are available for a discount, they're a buy, but that might not be applicable to all of you guys listening to this. And again, it's important to understand that at the wide receiver position in this year's rookie drafts and at the, rookie pick positions in general, the fall off is going to happen in Superflex around the 106 because Fernando Mendoza, the top three wide receivers, Lemon, Tate, and Tyson, and Jeremiah Love will all be off the board at that point in time. We're talking about after those guys, Denzel Boston, Casey Concepcion, Kenyon Sadiq, whoever ends up being RB2 in draft capital or whatnot. We're going to be looking at top 30 to 36 dynasty wide receiver assets, top 20 to 24 dynasty running back assets, and maybe Ty Simpson if he gets first round draft capital, Kenyon Sadiq if he gets top 10, 15 draft capital. We're not talking about elite difference making assets. So a lot of these guys that I'm going to talk about are available for that price tag of like 102 to 109 in this year's rookie drafts, because I do think buying wide receiver production who are still young, who can still produce, who still have a lot of tread left, are very sharp moves to make at this point in the offseason. Let's start all the way up top. If you're going to buy a stud wide receiver, the guy to do it with is CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion. CeeDee Lamb, just 14.3 points per game this season. I know, we talk about CeeDee Lamb a lot because Danny's a Cowboys fan, but the injuries, Pickens out producing him. He's only 27 years old, guys. Next season, he's still an elite player. Even if Pickens, is signed long-term, let's say they sign him to a 3-year deal, we're looking at CeeDee Lamb in 2024 posting a top 8 season. We're looking at CeeDee Lamb in 2023 and 2022 posting top 5 seasons. I have no doubt in my mind that Dak and this offense will be back to their pass-heavy ways, and CeeDee Lamb will definitely probably have more than 3 touchdowns and 6 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. We should see those touchdowns get back up to higher levels. So if you're going to look for an absolute stud, you're going out and spending a big haul. Maybe you have the 102 or 103 in rookie drafts this year, and you're like, screw it, I'm a competitive team. Send that pick away for CeeDee Lamb. He is definitely probably available for about the 102, 103 in rookie drafts. If you had to give up the 101, that's where it's more of a conversation, Jeremiah Love versus CeeDee Lamb. But if he's available for less than the 101, or like you can see here, some of the price tags that I have him listed at, I'd pay the 101 for him, give or take. But if you can get him for less, that is how the trade value chart works. Ideally, what they have listed here on the bottom of the screen here is what they're worth. If you can pay less, then it's a good buy. If you can sell for more, then it's a good sell, so on and so forth. Moving into the next wide receiver that I think is a good buy right now is Garrett Wilson. Again, more of a soft buy at the beginning of the season. We saw through the first 5 weeks that Garrett Wilson was legitimately producing like a wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 6 in points per game through the first 5 games, 18.6 PPR points per game, entering the prime of his career, just 26 years old at the beginning of next season. So much ambiguity here that it makes for a buying window. Nobody knows who the quarterback's going to be. He'll probably come with a nice discount because everybody is concerned that it's the Jets and we have no idea what's going to happen there. But what we do know is that Garrett Wilson, is very committed to the team, very committed to be a building block for the Jets franchise, and whatever quarterback upgrade that they get, it should be an upgrade over what he had in Justin Fields. And even with Justin Fields, he was able to produce at a pretty high level at the beginning of the season. Moving in to Zay Flowers, who every year, every single one of these videos I talk about Zay Flowers, he finally took that major step in production. We use points per game around here, which was 14.31 points per game, which doesn't sound like a major step up from like the 12 point per game receiver that he had been. But keep in mind that he was wide receiver 7 in overall finish because he did play the whole year. That'll carry weight for some of your league mates. Lamar Jackson was hurt or bad for like 3/4 of the season. If we got an MVP caliber season out of Lamar Jackson, I am confident that Zay Flowers would have been a 17, 18 point per game producer this year. And he was 3rd in yards per route run behind only Puka Nacua and only Jackson Smith and Jigba. And it sounds like there's going to be an offensive-minded head coach coming into Baltimore. I do think that Zay Flowers' best production is still yet to be seen. I still think that his age 26 season this year, his age 27 season going forward, this is an elite NFL route runner. This is a guy who gets great usage, and I do think a creative offensive mind would go a long way for a guy like Zay Flowers. So I am still buying him even though he already had the breakout, because you know why? His price didn't change. His price is still what it was last year. despite him being much better this season. And if he cuts out the fumbles and some of the mental mistakes, we're talking about a legitimate Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber talent at the wide receiver position. I believe that much in the player of Zay Flowers. And of course, when Lamar is healthy, he can be an absolute stud for you. And you saw that in spurts this season. And definitely when Lamar was playing at his high levels, we saw Zay Flowers take those big steps. Let's move in to Brian Thomas Jr. and also Travis Hunter. Let's talk about the Jags here, because both of these guys, in my opinion, are buys. Elite rookie season for BTJ. He was considered to be worth, let's say, 2+ first-round picks coming into the NFL season just like 5-6 months ago. Mental stuff, injuries, we don't really know what happened here. With Brian Thomas Jr., it is pretty inexplicable what happened from him to go for the wide receiver 4 as a rookie to the wide receiver 42 in his second season. I am expecting Brian Thomas Jr. to look a lot better in year 3 than he did in year 2. I think this was a sophomore slump. I expect it to be flushed down the toilet, and we never speak of this again. Travis Hunter, same exact scenario here, except we also have the controversial, is he a wide receiver? Is he a cornerback discussion? My thought process is this. When you look at these two wide receivers and you see, okay, they're 23 years old, they're the future of this franchise. I get conventional wisdom is going to say, but look how good Parker Washington was at the end of the season. Look how good Jacoby Myers was once he got to that team and then eventually signed for a 3-year deal. My thought process is this. They're 23 years old. They're the future of this franchise. I still think they're the best 2 most talented wide receivers on this team. And Travis Hunter, even if he plays more defensive back in year 2, will still be involved on offense. And once he gets on the field, again, we're living in like this parallel universe where Travis Hunter could have been healthy the rest of the season and could be a top 5 dynasty wide receiver at this point in time. If we map this out, after next season, Parker Washington, who nobody was scared of 6 weeks ago, who just recently broke out, will be an unrestricted free agent after next season. Jacoby Myers will be over 30 years old after next season with 1 year of dead cap remaining on the deal that he just signed. Who knows how well he's playing at this point in time? Maybe he's just a tertiary Christian Kirk caliber wide receiver at that point. Call me crazy here, but I think buying the 23-year-olds in this offense who are stud talents is a good idea. If they were going for obscene prices, I would understand not buying them and maybe even selling them. But again, prices, not players. Brian Thomas Jr., according to Keep Trade Cut, can be had for 105 to 108 in rookie drafts this year. Hunter going for 109 to 112 in rookie drafts, and depending on the league, maybe even cheaper because of the DB stuff. I would much rather have these two at their prices than hold Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington at their prices. Because again, I believe that these young players, ascending talents, again, Parker Washington, good player, but he's going to be a UFA after this year. And again, up until week 11, week 12, nobody was really scared of Parker Washington. He had a couple of good spike weeks. He's a good player. If you have Parker Washington, you feel better about him now than you did before, but I would probably sell high on him, which I'll get into a little bit later here. Quentin Johnston. The Chargers were a force when Joe Alt was healthy. The Chargers also, remember, all season did not have Rashawn Slater, their left tackle. They're all pro caliber left tackle. In the first 5-6 games of the year, they led the league in pass rate over expected. I believe at the beginning of the season, we saw the Chargers we were supposed to see, which is Justin Herbert dropping back, throwing like crazy, QJ, Ladd McConkey, Gadsden, etc., Trey Harris, Keenan Allen, if he's still there, are going to be the way that this offense functions. With Rashawn Slater and with Joe Alt out there, they can do that. Without those guys, we saw what it looked like. They had to go more run heavy. They fired their offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. They fired their offensive line coach as well. You can argue that all of the Chargers wide receivers and Justin Herbert and Arondé Gadsden are all buys for me right now. But to me, the best buy is Quentin Johnston because he showed a lot. He's 24 years old. He's entering a contract season. He was a top 12 wide receiver before he shit the bed from a fantasy perspective because he suffered a hamstring injury and before the offensive line crumbled for the Chargers and they started to have to pivot towards more of a run-heavy approach. I think we could be talking about a top 24 wide receiver in points per game next year. Quentin Johnston with Ladd McConkey, with Arondé Gadsden. All of these guys seem interchangeable. I don't think that Ladd McConkey necessarily is the clear alpha in this situation anymore. I think all of them can contribute. And Quentin Johnston, to me, is the most affordable one. I have him at wide receiver 29 in Dynasty. He is currently going off the board per Keep Trade Cut like wide receiver 36 in Dynasty. So I do think he's a little bit undervalued. And I do think you can get him for a decent value too. I'd be willing to pay like 111, 112 for him. I would rather go trade for Quentin Johnston than spend the 111 or 112 on like the wide receiver 7 in this class. I would rather go trade for QJ, and I don't think you'll have to pay that. I think he'll be going for early to mid seconds, no problem. So I would be buying Quentin Johnston actively. Devontae Adams, yes, he's 33, but Devontae Adams is very clearly still one of the best wide receivers in football. It's very evident that he can still play at a high level. He's probably just a one-year rental, just given his age and how long he's been going in his career. But for a top 3 to 4 redraft asset, which is where he'll go in drafts, people are looking to sell aging players this time of year. Everybody's focused on rookies. Everybody's focused on getting younger, especially those teams that had Devontae Adams that didn't win the championship. They might be thinking, I got to sell this player before he loses value. If you're a contender, you can buy Devontae Adams very easily, probably for an early to mid second round pick. But I think you could argue that even 111 or 112 is probably what he's worth given the production he should give you next season. Moving into the perpetual buy over here on the fantasy stock exchange, that would be one Josh Downs from the Indianapolis Colts. He's still extremely talented, just 24 years old. Alec Pierce is a free agent. Michael Pittman could be on the move at some point as well. Same receiving grade as Luther Burden this year. Same receiving grade as Rashee Rice this year. Same receiving grade as Jameson Williams this year. He just doesn't get the routes that those guys do. But if the receiver core clears up, Mitchell is obviously gone. Pierce could be gone. Pittman could be gone. We don't know exactly what this receiver core is going to look like. What I do think is that Josh Downs will be a top 2 target in this offense, whether it's Pierce that leaves or Pittman that leaves. I do expect one of them to be gone at the end of this season. So I like Josh Downs as a really good buy here. Again, I know he was really bad, inconsistent this season, but he was an ascending player coming out of his second season. And I do think with a healthy Daniel Jones, hopefully in year 4 in a contract season, we could see him have a really nice year. Moving in to where's Kayshon Boutte in these rankings? I feel like the experts have him a little bit too low right now. Kayshon Boutte, man, 23 years old, quietly been pretty productive off of big plays. Again, an ascending player, a player who's gotten better every year of his career. Remember that Kayshon Boutte coming out of LSU was a bit of a knucklehead, didn't really work hard. It looks like that stuff is rectifying itself. He's matured a little bit. He's grown up a little bit. He's going to be in a contract year in 2026. He was a top 36 graded wide receiver per PFF. Every year he's progressed, like I said, and he's tethered to an MVP caliber quarterback. Maybe they add a big fish to this receiving core, whether it's A.J. Brown or somebody like that. Even still, Boutte can be a boomer bust flex play and an asset that I would like to have as a good depth receiver. If he's like your 7th, 8th, 9th receiver on your roster, I feel pretty good about Kayshon Boutte. Would I be willing to send the 208, 209, 210 for him in a trade? I mean, you could. I don't know if it's necessarily worth it because you could just re-roll that asset on a rookie, but that's about what he's worth, in my opinion. If you can get him for 3rd round capital, obviously go ahead and do that. I would be willing to sell 3rd picks for him for sure. But again, even late seconds, I think is reasonable given what his projection looks like. And then let's talk about Mike Evans. I would expect him to be a 1-year rental based on everything I've seen from Mike Evans. Obviously, one of my favorite players in NFL history because I've been a Bucs fan the whole time he's been dominant. Good flex price tag, in my opinion. I think you can buy this dude for a mid to late 2nd round pick. I do not think he's going to retire based on my own kind of Bucs fan opinion. It doesn't sound like he's going to retire this offseason. It sounds like that'll be next year. And I do think if you need a flex play, you're at a deep PPR league, Mike Evans makes a lot of sense. I expect him to be healthier next year, hopefully, than he was this season. And then Jerry Jeudy, man. In 2 of the last 4 years, Jerry Jeudy has been a top 24 wide receiver. Now, I know it doesn't feel great to buy a guy like Jerry Jeudy, but he's on an expiring deal. He's been a top 24 wide receiver before. Despite having no quarterback, he could be gone from Cleveland this offseason. He could be in an upgraded situation depending on what happens. Again, really, really low price tag. I think he's available for 3rd round capital and as a throw-in in most deals. Not necessarily excited to buy him, but I do think he's undervalued more or less on the open market. So let's move into the sells for the wide receiver position. It's pretty straightforward here. There's only 2 guys that I believe are hard sells right now, and that is Rashee Rice, who you guys probably know what I'm about to say here. Rashee Rice is in trouble with the law again. And I'm honestly just concerned that this guy eventually gets exempt. And more than anything, I am confident that the Kansas City Chiefs will not want to re-sign him. And I actually think it's very possible that they take Mekhi Lemon with the 9th pick in the draft and look to offload Rashee Rice at some point or just let him walk in free agency. Because yes, healthy Rashee Rice, 18 points per game this year. But again, with Patrick Mahomes coming off of an injury, multi-ligament ACL tear, I believe it was, he might not be ready for week 1. Rashee Rice needs Patrick Mahomes and this role to be a great fantasy pick, because Rashee Rice is not an excellent real-life wide receiver. He beats zone coverage well, he's able to get open over the middle well, and it results in a good role for fantasy. He's not an elite talent. He has an elite role for fantasy. So to me, when you factor in that he's going to be 26, that he is in a contract season, that he has more trouble with the law that could result in him getting suspended or exempt again, and the fact that his just football, like take aside all that stuff, pure football projection, Patrick Mahomes might not be on the field right away. Rashee Rice, I'm not going to say he's got target competition or anything. It's very clear that he's the number one when he's healthy and on the field, but it is possible that they add receiver talent in the draft, whether it's with their top 10 pick, in free agency. We don't exactly know. All I know for sure is that Rashee Rice is an extremely risky asset and is still being valued as a top 12 dynasty wide receiver, and I just can't get there based on all of the legal stuff, all the stuff that makes me nervous about him. Good player, not a great player, not an elite player. Top 12 dynasty wide receiver to me should imply that there's some kind of value insulation there, or that they're just so good of a player that none of that stuff matters. And to me, suspensions, exemptions, all that stuff really scare me. So that's why I have him downgraded, and that's why I would sell him if I could re-roll him into a top 4 to 5 dynasty rookie pick in this class. Matthew Golden, classic face planner here. You look at Matthew Golden's season, and it's really bad. Like, when you factor in that Matthew Golden was the type of prospect that had to silence the doubters. This was not a prospect with an excellent analytical profile. This is not a prospect that everybody was in on. Analytically, he had so many red flags all over the place. So when you come out and you post less than 400 yards and 44 targets as a rookie, despite Jaden Reed missing most of the year, Christian Watson missing half of the year, when both of those guys are missing significant time and you start 5 games of 70+% of the routes and fail to post a regular season touchdown and less than 400 yards, you are a face planner. You could have been, if you were a great player, Jordan Love's number 1 receiver from the get-go. Yet, like I said, only started 5 games. Sell him low. I know you guys probably spent 109 to 112 to 202 on him in rookie drafts, but if you can get a mid-second for this dude right now, I would sell him, because it appears he will not be a stud for fantasy. Am I giving up on the guy? No, but I will say getting a mid-second round pick for him is better than getting nothing for him, which is very possible. Midway through his second season, he is worth Xavier Legette territory, Adonai Mitchell territory, where you're lucky to get an early third for the guy. So for me, based on his prospect profile combined with his rookie season, it is extremely unlikely he is ever a top 24 wide receiver for fantasy, because I think if it was going to happen, the runway was clear this year. He didn't get there, but he should have gotten there. And it's not like he was the type of prospect that was raw either. I thought he was actually pretty pro ready. So the fact that he didn't get on the field right away and produce is very concerning for his long-term fantasy outlook, which is why I would be selling my shares of Matthew Golden for whatever I can get for him. If all you're getting is third-round picks, then don't sell him, obviously. But if you're getting any kind of second-round capital, he would be off my roster, no questions asked. Let's talk about the soft sells at wide receiver. These guys are more shops. Again, league to league, what is the price tag? Marvin Harrison Jr., such a weird case, because in a parallel universe, we could be talking about a guy who is worth a top 12 dynasty wide receiver, even a top 6 dynasty wide receiver, because before his appendicitis, he was 12.3 points per game, a top 33 wide receiver in fantasy. With the Jacoby Brissett kind of pass-heavy nature of the Cardinals, if Marvin was out there, and again, in the 2 games that he played with Jacoby Brissett was very good. The Dallas game, we saw that. McBride's clearly the alpha here. Now Michael Wilson is a threat, at least to go shot for shot with Marvin Harrison, target-wise, maybe even outproduce Marvin Harrison. How does Marvin Harrison get to 1,200 plus yards, 8 to 10 touchdowns? Because that's what he has to do to be able to regain this price tag. He's being valued as a top 18 wide receiver on the open market right now. I have him at 20, which is only slightly lower than that. Danny has him at 26. He's a little bit more pessimistic. I think if you do that, 1,200, 8 to 10 touchdowns, we're talking about a top 12 dynasty receiver, but what percentage chance would you put on Marvin Harrison doing that in year 3? Because if he doesn't do that this year, then we're going to have to start talking about this guy as a mid-range wide receiver 3 in dynasty. Like, that's what we're going to be talking about it. So I think the odds would dictate that if you can cash out for the 104, 105, 106, somewhere in that range of rookie drafts, you should do it, especially in that top 5 tier of super flex drafts, in that top 4 tier of 1 quarterback drafts. If all you can get is 109 for him, then obviously hold him at that point. So it's league to league, depending on what you can get for him, but he is definitely a shop at the very least, in my opinion. I wanted to say that he was a sell, I wanted to come here and say that Marvin Harrison's a buy low, but a lot of people are viewing him that way, and it's actually pushing his price upwards. DJ Moore, definitely a soft sell right now. He's being valued as like a top 40 wide receiver. Whether it's in Chicago or not, he's a solid player. I get it, but I do suspect a 29-year-old wide receiver switching teams not to be the greatest bet if he does switch teams. And again, if he doesn't switch teams, he's got a crowded receiver core with Luther Burden and Rome Odunze and Colson Loveland, all those guys. And again, just remember what DJ Moore was for fantasy this year. He was wide receiver 35 in overall points, pretty much unusable for most of the year until like week 12 when he started to produce a little bit more. He was maddeningly inconsistent. I wouldn't be too excited about DJ Moore. I would probably sell him for an early to mid second and just re-roll that asset if I can. Moving in to Parker Washington. Now again, Parker Washington is more valuable now than he was before, right? Everybody who had Parker Washington stashed on their taxi squad, stashed on their bench, feels better about him now than they did before. However, I don't think Brian Thomas is going to be this bad going forward. I don't think that Travis Hunter is going to be hurt going forward. And I do think he will be on the field at wide receiver more than he will be on the field at cornerback. If you disagree, then by all means, prop up Parker Washington. Parker Washington also a UFA after this year. So maybe he gets big money in free agency to go be a team slot receiver the way like Christian Kirk did a couple of years ago. That would be good news for Parker Washington, but I think everybody's going to project him to be like the number 1 or number 2 in Jacksonville this time next season. I just don't think that's going to be the case. So I would use him to cash out for an early to mid second or to tier up to something better. Is he more valuable than he was before? Yes, but that can be true, and he can still be a soft sell given his market value. Kyle Williams, I also view as a soft sell as well because he's basically just Kayshon Boutte. They're the same age, except Kayshon Boutte to me has been more productive, more proven, and Kyle Williams didn't show me a ton this year outside of the fact that he can like get downfield for a long touchdown. But again, Kayshon Boutte can do that, and he does more in my opinion. So moving into the running back position, I know that was a little bit long on wide receivers, but again, wide receivers and running backs are the bulk of this video. Like the quarterbacks and tight ends, I'm going to breeze through them in 10 minutes because generally speaking, they're a little bit easier of cases to make. The hard buys at the running back position for me are these guys because this year, unique to most other years, we have a very good crop of free agent running backs, and the top of that crop of free agent running backs are Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, who were both the number 1 and number 2 running back in their respective draft class in 2022, and now they're up for their big contracts. Now, Hall and Walker are going to get big money, whether it's from their own teams, the Jets and Seahawks, or it's from other teams in free agency. It is really important to understand that the running back position is not like wide receiver this year in the draft and it is in free agency, but these guys are the top of the tier. How many teams, let's say there's 5 to 10 teams out there that want to upgrade their starting running back situation. How many of them are going to look in the draft and go, other than Jeremiah Love, that's my guy. That's my week 1 starter. I don't think it's going to be very many. At the very least, if you ranked the available running back options, free agency, draft, and otherwise, it would be Jeremiah Love number 1 because he's young and he's obviously very talented. Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker number 2 and 3 in some order. So I think these guys are getting big money if teams need to upgrade their running back position. I think what's going to happen, similar to 2024, is teams are going to opt to go for the veteran running back as opposed to drafting Jadarian Price, Katron Allen, Emmett Johnson, Jonah Coleman, Nick Singleton in the first 2 to 3 rounds. I think NFL teams are going to evaluate the landscape of the free agent class and the draft class and realize, like they did in that 2024 year when Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs and DeAndre Swift and Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon, all these guys signed with new teams or were traded to new teams, they're going to realize that the veteran option is the better option. So Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, I think, are due for big-time value spikes on the basis that they either sign with new teams or get some big contract insulation. Even if worst-case scenario, Hall is back on the Jets, it's a better situation. They should have a better quarterback situation. We don't know what it's going to be, but it should be better than it was last year. At the very least, it'll be better in 2027. And of course, we will see that receiving skill set, improved situation, healthy Garrett Wilson, better offense, Mason Taylor in year 2, Adonai Mitchell. They've made additions. It's not a good situation. I would rather Breece Hall go to a different team, but if he has to stay with the Jets, it's at least better than it was last year. Kenneth Walker could be alone in Seattle. I think it's very possible he gets extended now because Zach Charbonnet just tore his ACL. If they re-sign Walker, it's going to be curtains because Charbonnet not going to be ready for week 1. Even when he's back on the field next year, he's probably not going to be the same player post ACL year 1, and he'll probably leave in free agency because he is a free agent after next season. Plus, Clint Kubiak is probably getting a head coaching job, and he was kind of behind the whole debacle between those two guys anyway. So Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, hard buys, all formats. If you're a contender, Absolutely. If you're a 1-year punt, absolutely. Even rebuilding teams, they're 25-year-old running backs. These are not guys that are extremely, extremely old. So I am very comfortable buying both of them. Breece Hall is right now valued as like a top 12 running back on the market. I have him as like my RB9 in Dynasty, and Kenneth Walker valued as like a top 18 running back on the market, and he's my RB10 or 11. I can't remember exactly where he is. But Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall, 25-year-old running backs who are about to get big contracts. Sign me up, 2 to 3 year projection. They're going to be absolutely awesome. And then Alvin Kamara and J.K. Dobbins are two guys that I feel pretty good about as well. J.K. Dobbins and Alvin Kamara are just good players. J.K. Dobbins, this season, RB 24 in 2024. Before he got injured, he was a 15 point per game running back in 2024. Before he got injured this year, he's like a 14 point per game running back. The guy can just play. Yes, is he going to get injured at the end of every season? Probably. But this is a guy that could definitely go for more on the open market than what he's going for now, which is like an early 3rd round pick. He could easily be worth an early 2nd at some point during the NFL season. And then Alvin Kamara, same thing. I know he's old. I know he's maybe not the same player that he used to be, but this was really the first injury of his career. He's been pretty durable, pretty healthy for the most part. And before this season, RB9, RB11, RB16, etc. Again, he's 30 years old. Maybe he's on the Saints. Maybe he's not. I don't exactly know at this point, but I don't think he's done. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to be back starting or competing for a starting job with an NFL team. And it might be the Saints. It might be a different team. We have absolutely no idea at this point. I am just reporting that Alvin Kamara is probably a good buy for an early 3rd round price tag or even a late 2nd round price tag. Let's move into the soft buys at the running back position. Now, again, these are not buys for every league, for every team. You should inquire if the price is less than what is listed on the screen there, and also, too, if you are looking for that type of running back buy. For example, this running back class not being excellent is good news for Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, who I would consider to be very solid starting running backs, but in a loaded draft class, you'd have to be worried about if they add pieces in free agency or the draft. In a loaded free agent class where every team has a lot of money, maybe Chase Brown gets a significant piece added to his backfield. And could it happen? Yes, but do I think it's going to happen? No. Bucky Irving, a great running back, going to be projected to be a top 3 redraft running back, in my opinion. Round redraft running back, in my opinion. Using those 106 to 110 type picks where the fall off occurs in rookie drafts to go and get Bucky Irving, 106 plus a 3rd gets you Bucky Irving, go do it, because you're not going to get a running back at 106. Jonah Coleman, all these other running backs not named Jeremiah Love are not going to be worth that pick, especially if they're going top 75, top 100 draft capital. That would be a reach at that point in time. So your league mates may not know that these picks are not that valuable. 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112. It's early, man. It's January 20th as I'm recording this. It's very possible your league mates have no clue where the tier breaks are in rookie drafts right now. I'm telling you, Jeremiah Love, the top 3 receivers, and Fernando Mendoza, all top 35 to 50 assets in startups. There's going to be about a 25 pick discrepancy between them and the other assets off the board in startup value. So if you can sell your 106 right now to get up into that tier, or to sell for a veteran running back like Bucky Irving, who's 23 years old still, who should be getting an upgrade at coach, potentially Mike McDaniel as his offensive coordinator, losing Rashad White in free agency, healthier offensive line. He is one of my favorite buys at the running back position for sure. And same goes for Chase Brown, because I think that Chase Brown has proven that he is a stud running back in the NFL. RB7 this year in fantasy, RB10 the year before that, and week 9 onward, or Joe Flacco and Joe Burrow coming back onward, this was a legit difference-making back. So both of these guys, to me, are very, very good buys for those of you guys who are looking for running backs. You pick 109 and you realize there's not going to be any good available in the rookie draft. Strike now. Go trade that 109 for Chase Brown. Go trade that 107 for Bucky Irving, because that is how you will fix your running back position. You are probably not going to get a week 1 starting RB2 or better caliber asset in that range of the draft in rookie drafts. I promise you, I've already looked ahead on this class. I already have, run them through the prospect model, estimated the draft capital, all that kind of stuff. We're not going to suddenly get this huge influx of RB1 caliber dudes. Chase Brown and Bucky Irving, if their asset was in rookie drafts, it would easily go 105, 106, 107 off the board. So I'm cool trading those picks at this point in time, even though it is still technically an early look. Trey Benson, a little bit riskier. Now, I will say, I believe in Trey Benson, the talent. He has not shown much in the NFL. I'm still kind of relying on the caliber of prospect he was. I thought he would take a little bit of time to get acclimated. He's a very good athlete. He can catch the ball, etc. We're potentially living in a parallel universe in which he was a league winner, because James Conner tore his Achilles. He could have been a league winner down the stretch. Imagine if he was starting for the team instead of Bam Knight, Michael Carter, and all the guys that they had. If you're feeling lucky, a mid-second could be a very good gamble on a guy that could be easily worth a first-round pick, because he was a top 2 running back in his respective draft class. He is only 23 years old. Again, not 24 until training camp, a guy that does have a good amount of team investment behind him. The question is, what do the Cardinals do at running back? They're very at play to sign a Breece Hall. They're very at play to even sign like a Tyler Algier type or something. So you'd have to worry about that, but that's why I'm comfortable paying a mid to late second, not an early to mid second or a first round caliber asset. If you can get him for a mid to late second, he's a very decent soft buy right now. And then quickly going through some of these other guys, Chuba Hubbard, I think could start fast next year, because I'll talk about Jonathan Brooks in a second. But even if he is back, Chuba Hubbard is a veteran. He could probably be the starting back at the beginning of the season, going in like somewhere between the 8th to 10th round of fantasy drafts. Maybe he's this year's J.K. Dobbins, where week 5, he's like a top 15 running back. You could sell high on him for an early second round pick, maybe even a late first round pick in some leagues. That's what I think of Chuba Hubbard. Tyrone Tracy. Cam Scatterbo coming off a major injury. I think he could absolutely be a starting running back at the beginning of the season yet again. Again, you got to worry about maybe they add some running backs in free agency, whatever the case is, but I do think that he is a very solid option. David Montgomery could be jettisoned from Detroit, even if he's in his same role. We know what he represents. And then Rachaad White, he's already kind of teased the fact that he would love to go to Washington. I think that would be a great fit for him. Obviously played with Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. And I do think they would fit well together. Maybe it's Bill Krosky, Merritt, Rachaad White week 1 for this backfield. Maybe they go cheap and they go with those kind of guys. Rachaad White's been an RB1 in fantasy before. He was the RB4 overall in fantasy in 2023, and I believe the RB11 in points per game that season. So we're looking at a guy who's a pretty good option for very, very cheap. Like, we're talking early 3rd round pick is what he's available for. Throw into the back of your deals. Very easy buy, in my opinion, at that price tag, or at least stash if you have him. And then Tank Bigsby, a great player and a great offense behind an aging running back who he outperformed on a per touch basis this year. And he is a free agent after the 2025 or 2026 season, and he'll only be 25 and a half years old at that point in time. So I don't know, Tank Bigsby, maybe just a good stash, maybe a guy you throw to the back of your bench or whatever. And then let me talk about Jonathan Brooks here, because Jonathan Brooks, also a name that I would inquire about. He was a top 50 pick in the NFL draft in 2024. He will be 2 and 3 years removed from those ACL tears week 1 of 2026. Now, I understand that his likelihood of career success, because he's torn the same ACL twice, is unlikely, but they both were clean tears. They were not multi-ligament tears, so that's good. He is a pretty good athlete. That's good. Katron Allen, Emmett Johnson, Jadarian Price, Jonah Coleman, same age as Jonathan Brooks as well. So if he was in this class, think about Jonathan Brooks' exact profile, but 2 ACL tears instead of 1. How much would that really change his draft prospects? Yes, he could get flagged at the combine and teams would let him fall in the NFL draft, but if he got top 50 capital like he got when he was drafted, would we be talking about Jonathan Brooks' exact profile as the second best running back in this class, behind Jeremiah Love, of course, but in that same range as Jonah Coleman, Jadarian Price, etc.? It's just health with this guy. He's in a good situation. It's a good run scheme. He might end up being one of the better steals in Dynasty right now. If you can sell an early 3rd round pick for Jonathan Brooks, he was worth less than this a couple of weeks ago. I would have been buying him like mid-season, because you could have gotten him for like 4th round picks or whatever. He was an RB1 upside prospect in my model, comparable to DeAndre Swift, comparable to Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson and Nick Chubb and all that stuff. Rico Dowdle's going to be gone. He's already said as much that he wants to go to a different team. Chuba Hubbard, 1 year left on his deal, and apparently, this is the important thing, apparently the team still believes in Jonathan Brooks. If they didn't believe in him, then I wouldn't be telling you to buy him. But there's comments that have come out the last couple of weeks saying that they want him to be back on the field and they want him to be ready. And again, he's only going to be 23 years old at the start of the season next year. Even though he's 2 years removed from that ACL tear, they were smart with him. After he tore his ACL a second time, like, screw that. We're not going to try and rush you back on the field in the 2025 season. They pick up Rico Dowdle on a 1-year deal, get good production out of their backfield despite Jonathan Brooks not being there. But I think that planning level indicates to me that Jonathan Brooks is still a part of their future, still a part of their plans, a good receiving back, hopefully fully healthy. Again, it's just health. If you don't like him, you have no interest in this guy because of 2 ACL tears, I completely understand where you're coming from, but it's the price that he is available for that I am interested in. If he was going for mid-second round price tags on the market, I would be all the way out on that, but he is going for late 2nd round, early 3rd round price tags on the market right now. And especially if it's a third round pick that you're sending away for him, I am absolutely in on that. And then DJ Giddens, I always talk about, he was a raw prospect. He needed some time to develop. Jonathan Taylor's 27 years old and has a lot of touches under his belt. I think that we see DJ Giddens in year 2 like Tank Bigsby in year 2, where he was a complete wash of a rookie season. Year 2, he puts together mentally a little bit more, and we see him carve out a role in this Colts offense. I could be wrong about that, but he is free. Like, you can get him for a 4th round pick right now. So DJ Giddens, a guy that I'm kind of interested in startups or as throw-ins at the back of deals. RB hard sells. Now, hard sells, these first 2 guys are totally hypocritical to what I just said about Jonathan Brooks. However, the difference is price. Quinshon Judkins is coming off of a major injury, just like Jonathan Brooks. Jonathan Brooks is going as RB50 off the board. Judkins is RB9 off the board, and Judkins' injury just happened as opposed to Jonathan Brooks happening last year in the season, so he'll be 2 years removed from that injury. Judkins being RB9 on the market, I love Judkins. You guys know, if you were following the channel last year, I was the Judkins guy. But at RB9, I can't get on board with that price tag because both him and Cam Scadaboo, who's RB15 on the market, coming off of a similarly gruesome injury to his ankle, guy that was already not that explosive to begin with. What if he loses some of that explosiveness? In Scadaboo's case, not Judkins. Obviously, he's a great athlete. My estimation on both of these guys and why they're hard sells for me is that their market value is guaranteed to go down at some point. RB9 and RB15 is not going to keep up, especially if Judkins misses training camp, misses starts the season on the pup, something like that. Cam Scadaboo, same thing. I think once they're on the field, they won't look as good as they would in like year 2. So come the 2027 season, maybe they gain a little bit of value then. My point on these 2 guys is if you have them, I would sell them and cash out for. And apparently you can get a top 6 rookie pick for Quinshon Judkins right now. Apparently you can get a top 10 rookie pick for Cam Scadaboo right now, or a similarly valued asset. Maybe you can go take Quinshon Judkins plus a 3rd and go get Bucky Irving. Maybe you can take Cam Scadaboo and go up and get a Chase Brown or a Bucky Irving as well. So these 2 guys, again, major injuries, they scare me off a little bit. I've been a little bit injury optimism before, and I am a little bit on Jonathan Brooks, but the difference is price. Scadaboo is going for top 15 running back price tags, and Quinshon Judkins going for top 10 running back price tags. And I just think that at some point during their next season, we're going to get a buying window on these players that is less than top 9 and top 15 running back price tags. So I'm getting off that risk if I can. Maybe you can always buy back later, especially if you're in multiple leagues. You could always send out some offers in those. Moving into Woody Marks, Bill Krosky-Barrett, and Tony Pollard. Ultimately, I just think that these guys are going to lose their starting jobs. Right now, Woody Marks is the starting running back of this team. This year, he had a fine season. I mean, he has set an NFL record, it felt like, for being in the medical tent. But he's also 25 years old already, despite entering year 2 of his NFL career. He'll be almost 26 his second season. And he was like downright bad at running the ball in between the tackles. And if the Houston Texans are serious with themselves, they cannot seriously look at this running back and go, this is our starting guy next year. Like, they are very much in play to sign Breece Hall, to sign Kenneth Walker, to make a move and go up for Jeremiah Love in the draft. Like, they need a significant addition to this running back core. And while I don't think Joe Mixon will be really anything, what if he comes back? That could factor in as well. Same goes for Bill and for Tony Pollard. Again, you could argue that Bill had a nice rookie season. I would say that there was nothing in that backfield. There was nothing stopping him from being a workhorse all year, and that never happened. Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols were in his way, not Brian Robinson, not anybody significant. If I was Washington, I would seriously consider drafting Jeremiah Love with a top 10 pick, and definitely consider at least adding Rashad White, Tyler Algier, something like that in the draft. Tony Pollard's got Tajay Spears to compete with. He got a great workload all year and did nothing with it. So I don't think he's going to get that workload again. As we saw at the beginning of the season, his workload diminished as he went along, and he ends up finishing with like a pretty mediocre year. He did start to play a little bit better by the end of the year. You see the yards per carry and whatnot go up. He started to run for a lot better yardage, but that's kind of what I would sell my league mate on. I would say, hey, look, he turned it around, Cam Ward year 2, etc. Like, that's how I would sell Tony Pollard being a sell for me right now. And if you can get out on him for a mid to late second round pick, I would go ahead and do that. Moving in on the soft sells here. Now, I only say this because people get mad at me when I talk about these types of players being sells, but guys like Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and Saquon Barkley, if you just won the championship and you're poised to go back to back, Obviously, don't sell these guys. But I'm just saying, these guys are past the age and touch apex. If your roster dictates that you should tear it down or that you should be proactive, try and get younger at these positions, then yeah, you should shop Jonathan Taylor, because in some leagues, he goes for top 4 rookie pick price tags, and you could turn him plus another piece into Jeremiah Love, or you could turn him plus, a piece back into Bucky Irving plus or something like that. So that's personally what I would do with Jonathan Taylor. If all you're getting offered is the 109, then obviously don't sell him at that point. Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, only if I'm a stone cold top 3 team, no questions asked, would I hold these assets. But again, Christian McCaffrey coming off of 400 plus touches, maybe he gets injured. We all know the case with Christian McCaffrey. Saquon Barkley, again, 29 years old, coming off of another big touch season. Didn't look like the same player as he was in 2024 when he was the RB1 and RB2 overall, respectively, in overall finish. Again, if your team dictates that you hold these players, go nuts. But I do think it's worth doing your due diligence if you can tier down, or if you can get younger, or if you can be proactive on your rebuild. RJ Harvey is another guy that I think is a soft sell right now. He just wasn't that good as a rookie. He's already 25 years old, and he'll be 25 and a half entering his second season. It's not a huge deal in the long run that he's a little bit older, but why I'm a little bit worried about RJ Harvey is that when you're overdrafted, when you weren't supposed to be a second round pick and you were supposed to be a third or a fourth round pick, you were a bottom 10 running back in rush yards over expected when the starter, J.K. Dobbins, was a top 5 running back in rush yards over expected when healthy. What happens if you have any additions to your backfield? Because RJ Harvey was alone in this backfield when he started to break out down the stretch. But if Dobbins is back, they add Algier. What if Sean Payton goes and gets Alvin Kamara? Like there's opportunities to add backs in this free agency period, and I think they will. That would severely reduce RJ Harvey's overall value and definitely his fantasy projection as well, because I just don't think he's an excellent running back. So if you can cash out for any random 2027 first in that loaded class, I would do it. If you can cash out for the 105 to 109 to 110 in this year's class, I would probably do it. I just don't feel that great about RJ Harvey, the player, as apparently some other people are feeling about him. Kyle Menengai, definitely a solid piece. If you drafted him in the 4th round, congratulations, but he might be the new David Montgomery at best. He's a top 20 dynasty running back on the market, and realistically, unless DeAndre Swift gets traded, injured, dealt, whatever, I don't know exactly what to think of Kyle Menengai other than he's a really good piece, flex option, handcuff plus upside type of player. If you can sell Kyle Menengai on the fact that maybe some people think he's going to be the long-term starter here, I just don't think he's good enough that if Swift were gone, they wouldn't address the position. That's kind of how I feel about Kyle Menengai. He's a fun piece to a backfield, but I do think he is probably a good sell high if people are going to, feel really, really excited about the guy. And Blake Corum, same thing. I mean, it's not that I don't think Blake Corum is good. He definitely is. And if anything happens to Kyron, obviously he's a stud. But Kyron's under contract for another 2 years of guaranteed money and still playing well. Both of these guys feel like, yeah, Kyle Menengai, could he take over the backfield? Sure. But probably won't unless injury happens. Blake Corum, would he take over the backfield? Sure. But he probably won't unless injury happens. So that's kind of how I feel about them. If people are going to, have visions of sugar plums and them being, number 1 running back someday, I just don't think it's going to happen. Rico Dowdle, I think he's just kind of carrying some stink and some fumes of the value that he had at one point during the regular season. He really fell off down the stretch, and I don't think he's going to get a starting job in free agency. Could he be the Denver Broncos' new number 2 back? Could he be the Commanders' new number 2 running back? Yeah, but I think that's about the best case scenario for a guy like Rico Dowdle, so I'd probably sell him at this point in time. Caleb Johnson might have had the worst rookie season I've ever seen in my life. He was Trey Sermon territory coming into the season, and he ended up finishing the year with, what did he end up rushing for on the year? 28 carries for 69 yards. Not great, Bob. Not great. And this is a dude that you just, he's a bum. If you could sell him for a 2nd round pick, you should. You drafted him probably higher than that, but sucks to suck. You made a bad pick, and if you can sell him for a 2, you should get out while he's worth something, because he'll be worth a 3rd, 4th round pick by week 6 of his 2nd year if you don't sell him soon. If he ends up being good, I'll definitely eat crow on that, but it is so extremely unlikely that I'd be willing to bet he does not. Joe Mixon, he might retire at this point. Just sell him unnamed value if you can. For some reason, he's still valued as a top 50 dynasty running back. And then Kamani Vidal, definitely a better asset now than he was before, but I do think at best he's Amari Hampton's handcuff going forward, and He's valued as a top 40 dynasty running back, which to me is kind of running on fumes of the regular season. So let's move into the tight end position. There's definitely a couple buys I want to go through here. If you look at their actual rookie seasons here, you could take a look at Colston Loveland. By the end of the year, he was producing like a top 12 tight end, especially when you factor in once he started getting the routes, once he started getting the snaps, he was an absolute machine. Colston Loveland, I don't think it's being talked about how much he actually like looks like one of the best tight ends in the league already. Like, this is a 21-year-old top 10 pick in Ben Johnson's offense, who I think you can argue right now very easily he's the best receiver on the team. Rome Odunze obviously showed a lot of flashes at the beginning of the year, kind of fell off, got injured. Luther Burden, great flashes, but we haven't seen him put it all together yet. DJ Moore could be expendable, but even when healthy, I don't think it's outrageous to say that, and the playoffs are a good example of this, that Colston Loveland's the go-to guy here. And Colston Loveland, in my opinion, is closer to Brock Bowers and Trey McBride than people want to admit, because this is a 21-year-old dude, or going to be 22-year-old dude, who has the capital, who's tethered to a great quarterback, who checks every single box as a prospect, had he tested, would have been comparable to Trey McBride to begin with. And remember, Trey McBride did not do this as a rookie. He needed Zach Ertz to be out of there before he started to produce. So career trajectory-wise, and I think it's common sentiment that Colston Loveland is one of the best 3 to 5 tight ends in football. And at 22 years old, tethered to this offense, I feel extremely good sending away very high caliber assets for this dude. Like, if, again, Kenyon Sadiq, who's the best tight end in the class this year, is going to go somewhere between the 106 to 109 probably in rookie drafts, and has a lot more warts than Colston Loveland did as a prospect. Like, if Colston Loveland was in this class, like, he'd be easily the 105, 106 in it. So the fact that you can get Colston Loveland still for the 105 or 106 in the rookie draft, knowing that he should probably be worth 2 firsts already, is definitely worthwhile in my opinion. So again, if you got to pay 103, 104 for Colston Loveland, I think that's a fair price tag. If you can get him for less than that, then that's a steal. If you can get him for a mid to late projected first next year, plus a couple of 2s or something, then that's a steal, especially in any kind of tight end premium format. And then Harold Fannin, again, this was a dude who had every excuse, in my opinion, to be useless his rookie year. David Njoku was a good tight end. We were all drafting him as a top 10 redraft ADP tight end. Harold Fannin not only outproduced him, but made him expendable in a rookie year in which he came from Bowling Green University at 21 years old. This dude could end up being the Dynasty tight end 1 overall someday. Like, that level of career trajectory is possible for him because of what he did. Maybe it's a worry that Kevin Stefanski's no longer there, but I'm going to trust the dude who put up a top 6 season in his rookie year, coming from Bowling Green with David Njoku on the same field as him. Moving in to Dallas Goedert. He is just perpetually a buy because he's just a cheap veteran option and he produces well. So that's where I'm at with Dallas Goedert. No other explanation necessary. Dalton Kincaid, pretty solid metrics this year. 2.88 yards per route run, 11.7 yards per target. Was often injured, which sucks. And Buffalo is probably going to add some kind of weapons addition to this team, whether it's wide receiver or whatever. But Dalton Kincaid is entering the prime of his career. Tight ends, prime of their careers, 26 to 29 years old. I think Dalton Kincaid could end up being a very profitable guy to go after. He was tight end 9 in points per game this year. Definitely a solid option for those of you guys like me who don't like to spend up big at tight end, but maybe get big time production out of your tight end. Michael Mayer, routinely a part of trade discussions from the Raiders. Maybe he actually gets dealt at some point. Whenever he's on the field in place of Brock Bowers, he's able to produce. You can see tight end 4 in week 17 against the New York Giants, etc. Maybe he gets dealt to a new team. Worst case scenario, he is a free agent after this season. He's in a contract year this year. Ben Sinnott, Zach Ertz tore his ACL and is probably done for his career. And Ben Sinnott started to command a little bit more of the reps, the snaps at the end of the year. Maybe a decent sleeper option to go after late in rookie draft or late in startup drafts. So those are my tight end buys. Into the tight end sells, and it pains me to say this, but George Kittle's got to go, man. He's going to be 33 coming off of a torn Achilles next year. Now, if anybody can do it, it's George Kittle. However, we're talking about guy who already had down production this year, dealt with hamstring injuries, dealt with all that kind of stuff. And next year, he'll be another year older, probably some additions coming to the wide receiver core. And also, too, George Kittle is coming off of a torn Achilles. I just don't think that you want a 33-year-old tight end coming off of a torn Achilles. So if you can sell him on name value, people think he's going to come back strong. Maybe he does. I would cash out for an early second-round pick in Superflex formats, a mid-second-round pick in non-Superflex, in non-tight end premium formats. that's where I'm at with it. There's no way you're getting a 1 for the guy, but if you somehow could, that's highway robbery in my opinion. So Elijah Arroyo probably just sucks, so I won't even spare you the details on that. AJ Barner is just a better tight end than him in my opinion. So and they're both young. The team obviously wants to build around that tight end core, and Barner proves to be the better one, so I would sell Arroyo. I didn't like him as a prospect. If you guys watched the tight ends to target and avoid, he was a big-time avoid for me in rookie drafts. Gunnar Helm, couple of nice games at the end of the year, but for some reason he's like a top 22 dynasty tight end on the market. I don't get that. I really don't. I think that Chigakonkwo and Gunnar Helm and all these guys are kind of interchangeable. Maybe Chigakonkwo, when he leaves in free agency, Gunnar Helm becomes the dude. I'm not excited about him. As a Texas fan, I didn't think he was that great. He seems more like a Dalton Schultz, Jake Ferguson type of guy. Maybe you think he's the next Dalton Schultz, and that's why you would have him valued there. I just am personally not there with him. And then dynasty quarterbacks. Now, in Superflex, quarterbacks are very valuable, but there is a lot to be said about quarterback value insulation when you're just a good quarterback with a good situation. And that's why I like Brock Purdy as an undervalued soft buy right now. He's being valued right now outside the top 12 quarterbacks in Dynasty, which I don't get. He's my Dynasty quarterback 10. So if you are doing a startup, need a quarterback to trade for, maybe you have like an aging quarterback. Because like you have Matthew Stafford as your QB2, and you have like the 107 in rookie drafts this year, and you were hoping you'd get a young quarterback with that pick. Send that pick for Brock Purdy, and send whatever else you need to add on to that pick for Brock Purdy, because I'd be willing to pay 107 plus like a 2026 2 and the 2027 2 for a guy like Brock Purdy, who I think is a long-term staple and of course had a monster back half of the season. Same goes for Trevor Lawrence. Again, I think he's established himself as a very solid fantasy quarterback, finishes the quarterback 4 overall in fantasy scoring, and especially, week 8 onward after the team's bye, he was very good. And if we can't decide between Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas and Parker Washington and Jacoby Myers and Brenton Strange, well, we should probably just take the quarterback, and that's Trevor Lawrence. And then Baker Mayfield, again, I think he'll get a quarterback or an offensive coordinator upgrade. Josh Grizzard was not great. He was dealing with injuries. His offensive line was dealing with injuries. His receiver core was dealing with injuries. I'm kind of willing to flush the back half of the year for the Buccaneers. I know I'm a fan of the team, and I'm kind of biased in that regard, but I just think they're going to be a much better operation. A calendar year ago, or calendar 8 months ago, we were drafting Baker Mayfield as a top 6 redraft quarterback. And I do think that the projection next year, year 2 Emeka Egbuka, Chris Godwin year 2 off the injury, Mike Evans I'm expecting to be back, Jalen McMillan not dealing with a neck injury. I think this offense is still going to be good, especially if it's Mike McDaniel calling the plays or somebody like that. Even if it's like a Zach Robinson or a Brian Callahan, I think it's going to be better than what Grizzard did. Not because I think Grizzard was a terrible offensive coordinator. It's just that we had so many injuries to the quarterback, to the offensive line, that things to the running game, that it was just not a good situation. Jared Goff, I actually like the Drew Petzing hire, to be honest. I think people are underwhelmed by it, but I think that he's a good fit for what they like to do. He's good at over-the-middle targets, scheming up Trey McBride for so many years in the Cardinals, and now he has Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. I think he's a good fit for the offense, and I think he's a good fit for Jared Goff. Remember what Jacoby Brissett was doing with Drew Petzing with no run game. Imagine having Drew Petzing calling the Lions offense last year. Like, he is an upgrade to John Morton at the very least. So I think Jared Goff is in for a bounce back season potentially from a fantasy perspective. Not that he was bad necessarily, but he was kind of worse than he was the year prior, and he was a little bit more inconsistent. Still, Jared Goff, routinely a pretty undervalued asset in Superflex. The only hard buy that I have here is Kyler Murray. And the reason for that is not because I think Kyler Murray will get back to his prior production that we had seen from him before. It's just that I think he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks on the planet, and that he will get a starting job. And because he runs the ball, he will increase in market value. I think the second he gets traded to another team, whether it's like the Jets or the Dolphins or something like that, we're looking at a guy who's in the value tier of CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Cam Ward, those type of guys, because he does still run the ball a decent amount. He was quarterback 10 in 2024 and did have like somewhat of a bounce back season. Again, I'm not excited about Kyler Murray, the asset, like I was a couple of years ago, but I do think he's not a terrible option. And then same goes for Malik Willis. I think similar to Kyler Murray, because he runs the football, he is going to get starter money this year. And I do think it will be with the Dolphins, because the Dolphins hired his GM and his defensive coordinator as their head coach. So I think that the Green Bay ties there will result in him going to Miami. I think they're probably just going to eat to his contract or deal it or something like that. So I do think Malik Willis will be a starter in some form or facet on some NFL team, whether it's the Cardinals, the Dolphins, the Jets, somewhere he's going to get a starting job and starter money. So Malik Willis, because he runs the ball, absolutely worth a shout here, because when he's starting. I mean, we saw week 17 versus Baltimore, QB3 on the week, 31.5 PPR points in that one because he went 9 for 60 and 2 touchdowns on the ground. This is a very fantasy relevant option potentially. And honestly, maybe I should have him ranked higher than QB 29 because if I think for sure he's going to get starter money, I could make the argument he's as valuable as Sam Darnold or Cam Ward because of what he represents for fantasy. So that's where I'm at with him. And then the quarterback sells. And I'll get out of here hopefully under the hour mark here. Jackson Dart is not a sell because I think Jackson Dart's not good. I think he's a sell because he is in the same value tier as Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts, according to Keep Trade Cut. And I don't agree with that. I think he should be Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love territory. And that's not where he's being ranked right now, even though that's where I have him ranked. So Jackson Dart, a little bit of a sell high right now, even though I love Malik Neighbors. I think they're going to probably draft a wide receiver in the draft as well. You could argue him as high as the Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts territory. I just wouldn't quite put him there yet. I think he's close to that tier, not quite there yet. CJ Stroud, I'm worried that this guy's not going to produce anymore, man. Quarterback 21 and quarterback 18 the last 2 years. And he has good receivers. It's not like he has bad receivers. His offensive line's not great, but it's not terrible. I'm just worried that this guy is being overvalued because of his rookie season where he finished as quarterback 9. And even in that year, it's not like he was like dominant. He had that great game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, great game against Jacksonville, and then more or less he was kind of an average fantasy quarterback other than that. So for me, CJ Stroud, a little bit overvalued on the market, and I'm starting to question, honestly, how good of a quarterback he is as well, and he doesn't run. So fantasy quarterback-wise, I think if somebody said Malik Willis signs a 2-year deal to the Dolphins to be their starter for the next 2 seasons, and they said, I would rather have Malik Willis than CJ Stroud, I don't think it's outrageous. I don't think I'd agree because I think Stroud has more value insulation long-term, but I don't think it's outrageous given how much production Malik Willis will give you over the likes of CJ Stroud. JJ McCarthy, I just think is bad, honestly. And he's a starter right now, and it might be a matter of musical chairs where the Vikings don't have another dancing partner, so they have to go with J.J. McCarthy again. But I do think he's a bad quarterback, and I do think he's going to lose his starting job in the next 1 to 2 years. So while he's still a starter, this is the quarterback position, man. You're not a starter anymore. You're not useful anymore. So he's a starting quarterback right now, so that's why I'd be selling him because I don't think he will remain a starting quarterback long-term. Maybe it's Aaron Rodgers coming to the Vikings. Maybe it's Daniel Jones coming back to the Vikings. Maybe Jacoby Brissett or Mac Jones get traded to the Vikings. I have no idea what's going to happen there. What I do know is that I don't feel great about his starting prospects long-term. And Michael Penix, I think he's a sell as well because of all the injuries that he's dealt with. I don't think he was particularly good before. I also think it's possible that after his second season or third season as a starter, third season in the NFL, they don't know what he is and maybe don't pick up his 5th-year option and whatnot. It sounds like Atlanta's brass is still high on the player, which makes me think that I should probably actually, I do have him over JJ McCarthy, but I do feel a slightly bit better about him as opposed to JJ because I feel like the Vikings brass doesn't like JJ McCarthy. That's good news for Michael Penix. But the injury history and will this guy be the same? And again, what does the same even mean? He wasn't that good of a quarterback before. That's what has me worried about Michael Penix. He was pretty useless for fantasy up until he had 2 games of top 12 production. One against the Patriots, one against the Bucks, and he was pretty much useless outside of that. And he has good weapons. He had Drake London, he had Bijan Robinson, he had Kyle Pitts, and all those guys. That would be my worry with Penix. And then Shadur Sanders, he's not going to be the starting quarterback there. I actually think they would roll with Deshaun Watson over Shadur Sanders next year. He had 1 good game against Tennessee, and other than that, he was pretty horrendous otherwise. How many interceptions did he throw to touchdowns this past year? 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and 6.6 yards per attempt. He's not a good quarterback. So I would sell him based on name value. His last name Sanders. People are excited about that. But yeah, that is the end of the video. Again, this was Dynasty trade targets by position. If you guys want to access the Dynasty trade value charts, they are available on flockfantasy.com. Just like I went through here, you can see what they would go for in your specific league. Superflex, 1 quarterback, future rookie picks, current rookie picks. What are they going for on the price tag? Like I said, what I have on the trade value chart is what we believe they are worth. Me and Danny collectively, consensus-wise, we believe that Brock Purdy is worth 102 to 104 on the open market. What you could get them for makes them a good buy. If they are going for 106, if somebody's going to give you the pick that's going to be Mendoza, 105 or 104, for Brock Purdy, I would rather have Brock Purdy than Fernando Mendoza, as good as he is. Same goes for sells. If somebody is being valued as 102 to 104, but you could sell them for the 101, then I would sell them. It's all dependent on the price. It's not necessarily that I hate these players or I love these players. Obviously, some of that stuff goes into it, but it is more price driven, these Dynasty trade value chart and Dynasty Trade Target by Position videos. So if that interests you, check it out down below. Flockfantasy.com. You can start your 7-day free trial. It is the absolute best tool that you can possibly use for Dynasty. When it comes to everything that you can use, there's the expert rankings, which are free to use right now. You guys can go there, but once you have a subscription, you can see my specific rankings, as you can see there. You can use our trade calculator, which is custom to your specific league. It links all your leagues. You can use it by league market as well. So if your league is like super weird settings, it will adjust for that in the trade calculator. You can do startup mock drafts. You can do rookie mock drafts. You can compare players based on their game logs and based on their statistics. You can use our range of outcomes tool. You can use our prospect model, my prospect model, which will have the 2026 prospects in it within the next week or two. And you can also get advice from us, whether it's a review or a trade question or a start sit question come regular season. All of that is available. And again, the Dynasty trade value chart is also linked on here on the post page as well, along with all the draft guides of all your other favorite creators, the land guys, the domain guys, and Mason. So if that interests you, you could check that out using the link down below in the pinned comment and in the description, flockfantasy.com, promo code FSE. But with that being said, peace out. I'll talk to you soon.